We're going to go through some Supreme Court cases, do some group casework, watch a short film about the presidents, which I find entertaining, and then talk about Jackson's presidency and whether or not he was truly a president of the people. So, before we do that, I thought we'd get into this class by asking if you saw any cool current events recently that you'd like to discuss that are relevant to this class. Anything? Like, does anyone know what tomorrow's the anniversary of?
Yeah.
If you watch any TV, tomorrow's the 50th anniversary of Kennedy's assassination. So they're doing a lot of specials on TV, which should be interesting to watch. I'm a JFK junkie personally, so.
So do you believe the long gun?
You know, I'm not going to discuss my theories about what I believe. I'm not sure what I believe, but I'm very intrigued. So to answer your question.
Wait, was that a, so that's a no?
That's I'm really, I like to explore all theories. So, what else do you, I think it was the 150th anniversary of the Gettysburg Address 2 days ago, yesterday. Y'all are chock full of current event information.
JFK and deaths.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen that? Well, I know she has that poster over there, but there's this new thing surfacing with all the similarities, like their secretaries were named like the opposite. And one was assassinated, what was it, in a theater and ran to something?
A warehouse, and
yeah.
then one was assassinated by a man in a warehouse, and he ran to the theater.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? History
Yeah.
is very.
And they both fought for civil rights.
It's crazy. Okay, so let's start with where we were. Can y'all tell me a little bit about what y'all been talking about in the class with Miss Hollington?
Well, we finished John Quincy Adams when Henry Clay gave his support to Quincy Adams.
So y'all finished with the corrupt bargain of 1824, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think you had also talked a little bit about the Monroe Doctrine.
Yes. Yes.
Do you want to tell me what that's about? Okay, tell me.
He told Europe that you can't come over here and colonize anything on the North American continent.
Right, and who did he tell that to? How did he tell Europe that?
The Monroe Doctrine.
Yeah, in front of Congress. So he was giving a speech in front of Congress. What else is going on at this time? We're expanding, right?
Yes.
And what was the result of the expansion? We had a big compromise that came up. Missouri Compromise. Who wants to fill me in on the details there?
Well, basically, the last few states that we had, they were like two states each, slave states or free states. Missouri came in, and nobody knew what to do with it exactly. Was it going to be a slave state, or was it going to be a free state? So the Missouri Compromise was Maine, a new state that used to be, New York or something like that. They became a free state, and Missouri became a slaveholding state out of the compromise. They wanted it all even, so the slaveholding states and or the northern states, non-slaveholding states, could not have more power in government.
Perfect. So y'all know what you're talking about. Okay, so before we get to John Quincy Adams' presidency or lack thereof, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court and the judicial branch and the impact that a couple of decisions made during this time period. We'll start though with John Marshall. He was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Does anyone have any interesting facts about him? Know anything about him besides him being Chief Justice of the Supreme Court? Yes.
At Marbury v. Madison, he made the decision.
Oh, good. And actually, when John Marshall sat on the court, the Supreme Court was inside the Capitol building. It was the only time that the two branches of government were located within the same building. But he served as Chief Justice for 35 years, the longest serving Chief Justice ever, and he was a Federalist, which is significant because at this time Federalists were slowly dying out. Republicans were being replaced on the bench for the vacancies, and he was still able to garner support from the majority of the opinions, even though he had differing political ideologies. A lot of people say that John Marshall had an influence stronger than some of the founding fathers, or not as just as strong. And really this slide's up here for three main purposes. When we go through, we're about to go through 7 different Supreme Court cases. I'm going to assign each of you one. You're going to become an expert on it. And I want you to think of these 3 themes that kind of tie all these court cases together. You have the theme of strengthening the judicial branch, so these decisions are going to strengthen the judicial branch, increase the power of the federal government, and advance the interest of the proprietary and commercial classes. So, I want you to number off starting here.
1.
That's
7, start over with 1.
3,
4,
5,
6,
7,
4, 5.
6.
Okay, perfect. So, if you are a 1, I want you to go meet in that corner, and you're going to be an expert on McCulloch versus Maryland. If you are a 2, I will oblige you. You can meet back there. You are Dartmouth College versus Woodward. If you are a 3, you are Cohen's versus Virginia. Where's the 3? You're 3? Come over here in this corner. If you're a 4, you're Johnson versus McIntosh. Go over there to him. If you're a 5, you're Gibbons versus Ogden. Where do y'all want to go?
Right.
You can go right here in these desks. If you're 6, you're Cherokee Nation versus Georgia. Go right over there. And if you're 7, you're Worcester versus Georgia. Go right there. Okay, and what I want you to do is I'm going to give you about 15 minutes. I want you as a group, everyone in the group needs to write it down. Give the basic facts of the case. State the constitutional issue that was at question. Let us know the decision, and then I want you to concentrate on the significance. I don't need a lot of facts. This is really just to trigger your memory so you can really figure out the case. Okay? So you have about 15 minutes. If you have any questions, let me know. We got all our groups worked out? You want me to send a group number? No, it's I have a book that I've been using up there. If you want to use it? Let's start with John Quincy Adams. What did you learn about him?
Embodiment of his father.
What?
The embodiment of his father. He led his office trying to reform and did the same thing his father did.
Right, so he kind of had a know-nothing presidency, lack thereof. Okay.
Except his father was worse with the alien expedition.
What years was it?
24 to 28. So, were you surprised at the election of 1828?
No.
Dirty politics didn't surprise you?
No.
Well, I was kind of shocked. I didn't think it existed till social media, but I guess it's always been around. So, something cool about John Quincy Adams I told the last class. There was a little snippet in there. So, what did he do after he served the presidency? Right, so he went back and served in the House of Representatives. And they said his legacy was the fight against slavery. And this wasn't in the video, but something cool to know about John Quincy Adams is that when a congressman's first elected, and this since the beginning of the House of Representatives, he has a mentor his first 2 years in office. And John Quincy Adams mentored another future president. And he had a tremendous impact on him. Can y'all guess who that is?
So many presidents after Jackson.
Well, think about it. What was his legacy? Perfect. Y'all, the first class that's got it was Abe Lincoln. So when Abe Lincoln, as a young, spry little congressman, came to Washington, D.C., John Quincy Adams served as his mentor. And you'll see a lot of thought and a lot of his push for slavery and ending slavery from John Quincy Adams, which is kind of a cool connection to make.
What did
So,
he do before the presidency?
Who,
John Quincy
Lincoln?
Adams? I'm not really sure. That'd be great for you to find out.
There was a famous court case with the slaves.
So, let's stay on track. Let's move to the election of 1828. So it was kind of a disaster. what policies did they talk about during the election of 1828? None, right, so they didn't talk about anything, they just attacked each other, right?
Yeah.
And then what was kind of the saddest thing that happened shortly thereafter the election?
Oh, Jackson.
Rachel Jackson died, she was 61. She was young, she died of a massive heart attack. So then Jackson comes into office, and he kind of takes on 4 main battles that they talk about. Can anyone name one of the battles? Federal Bank, that was the last one they talked about. Petticoat, Battle of the Petticoats. What was the Battle of the Petticoats?
I don't know, I just remember.
Yes, you do. Who wears a petticoat?
Who is this right now?
We're talking about Jackson. I'm gonna need y'all to hang with me for another 15 minutes, okay? So we're talking about the Battle of Petticoats. You were close. Peggy Eden.
Yeah. Oh, it was about how his cabinet people would associate with him and he like
I know he'd be a tough boss to have. Do you think he was hot-headed?
Yeah.
Do you think he'd have job stability on his cabinet?
No.
So they wouldn't hang out with Peggy Eden, and so he just fired all of them.
well, he actually believed that they were.
Okay, what was the second? It's not my job to answer your sheet.
The second one.
He's supposed to know. It's your job. It's not my job to answer your sheet that you're supposed to be answering during the video. So let's talk about the second battle that they had. What was it? Right. Indian removal. And how did that end?
Well, Marshall said it was unconstitutional, they did it anyway.
Right, and we kind of alluded to that when we talked about the Supreme Court cases. So regardless of, and that kind of exploited what weakness of the court.
Didn't have an army.
Right, the Supreme Court can't enforce it. What was the third battle he fought? Nullification. And what was the idea behind nullification?
South Carolina, they thought they had the right to nullify federal law. But they.
And who was the first? Yeah, and who was the personal battle at that time? Calhoun, and who was Calhoun? His vice president.
Okay, why would he the vice president say that was his president?
It wasn't always.
They didn't always even like each other. But ever since, I don't know, politics doesn't really have reasoning. And then the last battle we talked about was Nicholas Biddle and the banks and the maintained people. So, all in all, what's our opinion of Jackson?
Was John
He's a great man. What does everyone else think? You liked him?
Better than.
Better than Quincy Adams? We have different legacies. So can y'all find any commonalities between Jackson and Quincy Adams? They're both presidents. Thank you. They're both stubborn. What else? I think they're both, don't you think they're both pretty poor managers?
Jackson was a great manager.
Of their cabinet. We have poor managers.
Jackson was a great manager and army.
And I think they both came to office with the spirit of change. I think most presidents come to office with that. Jackson was a little bit more successful than John Quincy Adams. Although I don't want his legacy to be lost. And that he did have in Congress. Okay, so I want you to take out a sheet of paper. And I want y'all to answer the question on the backboard. Was Andrew Jackson truly a president of the people? Why or why not? We'll turn that in before you leave.